All right, folks. Happy primary day. First in the nation. First polls have closed in New Hampshire. Oddly, if you listen to the show yesterday, Matt Mowers was talking about this. They allow some polls, each locality can close when it wants. So a good chunk of them have closed, but there are several others that close at 8 o'clock. So we're gonna break it down while we have this. If you watch the show today, I just want to start off with a couple things that are interesting. This was the Republican sample ballot. You got 24 candidates on there. Obviously, Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott, Asa Hutchinson, Ryan Brinkley, all on there, people that have been running. But then you got Samuel Howard Sloan from Oakland, California, and others. I just find it fascinating as a political, geek. But here's the funny thing. This is the Democratic ballot. I showed this on the show today. 21 candidates, so 24 on the Republican side, 21 on the Dem side. Biden's name not on the ballot, right? Dean Phillips, the congressman from Minnesota, obviously the one that everybody was kind of paying attention to. How did he do? But at the very bottom, right down there, it says write in. So you have to fill in the bubble and write Joe Biden's name in. I'm trying to push that up. But just to give you an idea of who some of the candidates on the Dem side were, you had Paperboy Love Prince. Yep. I wonder how many votes Paperboy gets. We're about to find out sometime soon. Vermin Supreme, another big winner. And then Biden not on the ticket, but President R. Bodie. Yeah, let's see. He is right there. President R. Bodie from Atlanta, Georgia. He's on the ballot as well. So before I get to this race, I just want to say, if you are interested, go to my Twitter feed tonight. Check out this leaked audio from Arizona of what is, I think, correctly being described. Not correctly. I mean, there's no other way to describe it, as an attempt to bribe Carrie Lake to keep her off the ballot, keep her from running. There is a leaked call from the chairman of the state party, or interaction. It's not a leaked call, that it sounds like they're together. And it goes on for 10 minutes about an effort to get her not to run, to take a pause for 2 years. And they're offering, asking what it would take for her to do this. I got to be telling you, look, I've been in politics for 30 years. I did my first race, paid race, in 94. I volunteered for my first one in 92. I have never, ever heard of something the likes of this. Now, I was tweeting or retweeting, requoting, or whatever you call it now, Xing, or Jack Pacific, and he liked it. But this is illegal. You cannot offer somebody money not to run, or, I mean, that's a bribe. And I got to imagine that this thing doesn't go any further. But if you listen to Carrie, man, she was crystal clear from the jump that she was in this for the right reasons, to fight for an agenda. So if you haven't heard it, it's worth the time. And there's two versions. There's a 5-minute version and a 10-minute. I think I've reposted the 10-minute version. I would listen to the full 10. It's as somebody who's been in the game, sometimes you hear something and you go, well, this is how it works. I've never, ever, ever seen anything so blatant. And I as a non-lawyer, I think so illegal as what's on that tape tonight. I hope we have not heard the end of this, because it sounds like a mob thing out of a movie, where it's like there are people back on the East Coast that are trying to get me out. Hold on. Did she release the tape? Hey, Sean. Hey, ACU 52. I don't know. It says leaked. So it's two people in a room. The chairman of the party out in Arizona and Carrie Lake. Who knows? Maybe there's somebody else there. Maybe there's a list. I don't know. That's frankly, as far as I'm concerned, for right now, at least in the short term, that's the irrelevant part of this. And the reason I say it's the irrelevant part of it is, yeah, I'd like to know at some point, how did this get out? I that's intriguing to me. But more importantly is, who are these people on the East Coast that have these huge sums of money that they can offer her to take a pause? And the way that she's describing this, or that it's being described to her as, they fear you, and then Trump's name got brought up, and no, it's not about Trump, it's about you. I'll tell you, just as a side note, it makes Carrie Lake look pretty strong, very committed to the agenda, for running for the right reasons. But I actually think that whoever these East Coast people are need to be exposed. I mean, that's serious stuff. Anyway, hey, John Farley, how are you, buddy? So look, these polls have closed. I think we're going to find out pretty darn quick. Manchester, Nashua, and Concord, the three big cities. If we see a big win for Trump, it's going to be a quick night. Not just for him and for calling this, but I don't see how Nikki keeps going. The poll this morning showed it at 60-38. And it had kept getting wider, right? All these guys in the media for the last several days have kept saying New Hampshire can surprise people. And they talked about Hillary Clinton and others coming back. The difference in all those other cases was the momentum was with that person. So in Hillary's case, she came out of Iowa and then she was down, I don't know, say 7 or 8. Then she was down 5. And then the day of or day before the New Hampshire primary, she was only down a point and she won by, I think, 3 or 4. So the momentum was going with her, and you could see it in the polling. It's the exact opposite with Nikki Haley. As in the last few days, it has gotten wider for Trump. I mean, the DeSantis people, I don't think are going for Nikki. Even the Chris Christie folks, who should be kind of with Nikki, as you heard on that, speaking of leaked calls or hot mics, he was very clear that wasn't going to happen as well. So this is going to be very interesting. And by the way, they did all these exit polls. Not that they matter, but it was really interesting because immigration was obviously a very, very big issue for people today in New Hampshire. Now, obviously, they're up north, right? So you got the Canadian border. But I don't think that's what they were talking about. I think that the folks in New Hampshire are seeing the effects of illegal immigration just like all these other states. And I'm sure there is a concern for the northern border as well. But I think that what the people of New Hampshire are seeing is the fentanyl, the crime, and the concern for safety. And I think, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep an eye on some of these results that are coming in. Oh, hey, Barbara Farley, they got the whole Farley family on tonight. That's awesome. But I think that this is going to be a very interesting night. They're starting to read some results out. If you hang on one second. Well, we'll see. They'll have them up in a second, but I'm trying to watch this. But Nikki, look, if she doesn't come in within single digits, even the media, I think the media is desperate to keep her in this race. But while I was watching, flipping around the morning shows this morning, and even Kristen Welker. Hold on. They're reading off the Republicans at one of these. Here we go. They're trying to read off a couple of these. But yeah, economy, immigration, top issues, which is not surprising. But it is surprising, I think, to see, especially with home heating oil costs up in New Hampshire and inflation, interest rates being what it is, to see immigration top of mind for New Hampshire voters really says a lot about what's affecting them. Again, I apologize. I'm not trying to look away from you guys. No salty here. Trump's got this one. Pat Collins, Trump wins over again. MAGA 24. SCOTUS probably surprised many of them. Actually, Linda, that's a great point. Linda pointing out that SCOTUS decision, the Supreme Court ruling with Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts siding with the liberal judges that the federal government can come in and cut that wire that Texas had put up. Now, John Kirby was asked about this at the White House today, and he was asked how they could defend not supporting an open border after this. He said, well, what do you mean? You're cutting wire. You sued the state of Texas because you wanted to be able to keep that border open. There's no other reason. You've got all this other area to worry about. You're understaffed, and that's your number one concern, to sue Texas? And I think Linda's got a point. I think these people in New Hampshire, hold on, here we go. This is just one precinct, by the way, but I think, let's see what it says, because we're in downtown Manchester with this. Okay, you gotta. I'm laughing at this because I showed you guys the sample ballot, like all 24 people, and this registrar or election poll worker is literally reading them off. Samuel Howard Sloan, 1 vote. David Stuckenberg, he's reading the whole ballot. So this may take a second with 20. What did I say on the Republicans? 24 candidates on the Republican ballot. Oh. 1,169 for Donald J. Trump. Let me just look at where he is on the ballot. Doug Burgum got 1 vote. Okay. Okay. By the way, this is weird for a lot of you. It's interesting because it's not in alphabetical order, right? It starts with Samuel Howard Sloan, then goes to Trump, then goes to Scott Allen Ayers, Ryan Brinkley. So hold on a second. We got to get it goes. John Anthony Castro, Chris Christie, and then Nikki Haley, 849. So in this one precinct in Manchester, Trump 1169, Haley 849. Again, one precinct. And this is obviously a lot better than what he did in 12 in that area. A lot of room to go. Okay, but when you start to look at these, if Haley was going to do well, she needed more independence. A higher vote total, especially in a place like Manchester. So, again, let's not get too over our skis this early on. But if I were Haley's team right now, this is where you would want to see a much better showing and a much better number. Okay, I'm just trying to Nikki's killed her chances for 2028. It's interesting that it's interesting that I asked the show to Jim McLaughlin, one of President Trump's pollsters yesterday. If you're DeSantis or Haley and you're trying to figure out, do you have anything left for 2028? I think the DeSantis clear endorsement the other day was an attempt to try to salvage something. And I read all your comments. Believe me, I know a lot of you are like, it doesn't matter. I think with Haley, there's no question that there's no comeback. Like even now, the votes that she's trying to get are from independents and crossover Dems. That's never going to be a winning strategy in a Republican primary ever. But the DeSantis one is going to be fascinating for me. By the way, since we have a second, as some of these start to trickle in, I did a video. I posted it on Instagram if you're interested. A lot of you the other day, and I think we talked about this Sunday night on the live stream, have said Byron Donalds would be a good VP. Ron DeSantis. Some of you brought it up. Again, I'm just telling you what you've said, so don't get mad at me, and I don't yell in the comments. Emoji, all caps. Here's the deal. Article 2 of the Constitution makes it clear, and then the 12th Amendment makes it even more clear that, yes, technically Trump could run with someone from the same state. Remember, Donald Trump is now a Florida voter, Byron Donalds, a Florida congressman, Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor. If they were to run together, nothing stops them. You can't prevent somebody from running or actually even being elected. But all 30 of Florida's electoral votes would be at stake. You can't give them to both people of the same state. It makes it very clear that they have to be from different states. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, it's just, there's no way it's going to happen. The only way that it would happen is 2 scenarios. One, you just willingly give up the 30 electoral votes, which no one's going to do in this day and age, considering the closeness of elections going back now well over 2 decades. Or Trump says, hey, I'm going to move back to New York and re-register as a New York voter, get a New York driver's license, et cetera. And do you think with Alvin Bragg and Tish James as the attorney general, he's going to do that? He moved to Florida for a lot of reasons. Those are 2 of them. So I'm just telling you, that's not going to happen. So just, it's not that they're good or bad or whatever. I just, from an analysis standpoint, he's not going to pick someone where that's going to be a problem. It's just, the first question would be, what are you going to do if it's a close election? Because the Constitution and the Electoral College are clear. Can he do it? For context, remember in 2000, Dick Cheney had been living and voting in Texas because he was the chairman of or CEO of Halliburton. He flew back to Wyoming, got a Wyoming driver's license, and re-registered to vote at a vacation home that they kept there. Remember, he had represented Wyoming in Congress and switched it so they wouldn't have that electoral problem. Now, thank God he did, because as you recall how close that thing got. Yeah, see, I'm reading Pam. I get it. And she writes Byron Donalds or Kristi Noem. It's not that he wouldn't be a good selection. I think the world of Byron. It's just, if you're Trump, you're not going to put yourself in a position where you don't get 30 electoral votes when, things are as tight as they are. John Radcliffe, VP from William. That's an interesting choice. Radcliffe served Trump well as national security advisor for those final couple of years. Obviously, I think he will have a place in a Trump White House, or I could even see him as like SecDef or something. But I don't see him. I'm sorry. I'm thinking, my apologies. Wrong guy. John Radcliffe, former congressman, was GNI. That would be an interesting one. He does live in Texas. So I was confusing him with Robert O'Brien. So sorry, brain. I've been up early counting votes. I'm reading a bunch of these, but sorry about that, William. It's a good suggestion, and I think Trump really likes Radcliffe. And Radcliffe did a fantastic job as DNI. So Rick Grenell, as you might recall, was the acting DNI. He'd been ambassador to Germany, came back as acting DNI. Trump nominated Radcliffe. He was a member of Congress. Radcliffe took the job for, I think it was the last 6 or 7 months, but he was a former congressman, lives in Texas now. Really smart guy, really strong guy. I could see him serving again as well. A lot of talk about Kristi Noem here. I definitely think she's going to be someone that's heavily considered. And by the way, sorry, I'm just trying to get a sense of some of the voting here. The thing that's going to be interesting, or I'm not interested, that I was watching just a little while ago as I was flipping through the channel. Kristi Noem is running commercials right now for South Dakota and how well it's done. She gets it, right? She knows Trump's going to be watching election results, as well as a lot of very, key people. And so she's running ads touting how great life has been and the turnaround that South Dakota has had. Very smart move, right? So anyway, DeSantis would make a great SecDef. Interesting. I think, look, he served. He was in the JAG Corps. I think he did Gitmo. He was over in Afghanistan or Iraq. I can't remember which, but he's got the cred. I don't know that he'd give it up to be SecDef, give up. But, Vivek, Noem, or Scott. Interestingly, let me throw 2 names out at you, or not, you just threw one, but I was listening. Glenn Beck was on the PBD podcast, and he said that when he had talked to Trump, he threw out Vivek and made this very compelling case about what Vivek would do and bring to the ticket. And he said, at the end of the conversation, Trump said, I'm hearing that from everyone. Not necessarily the same argument that Glenn Beck made, but that name. And I think that, again, that's going to be one that he has to consider. It adds an element of youth. He's obviously extremely well-spoken. The point that Glenn was making is that it can carry the mantle for 8 more years. Like, here's a guy who's, when you talk about the America First agenda, literally campaigned on being the next iteration of it. And I think he's got a good point. Mark Halperin, who you've seen on the show a bunch, he is reporting that Katie Britt, the junior senator from Alabama, is somebody that people in Trump orbit keep telling him. I'm intrigued by that, to be honest with you. I think Mark is a very, very, very well-sourced journalist, and he has a lot of people on the inside of all these campaigns. And when you stop and think about it for a second, I go, okay, she's a fresh face. She obviously elected in Alabama, has done well with the MAGA crowd. She's got a great image, young, telegenic. I mean, she checks a lot of the boxes that I think Trump has been talking about. So I think it's definitely interesting. it's funny because when I look at your comments and the feedback I get after shows and on Twitter, and then, is I've never, not once has her name came up. I mean, I got God Sarah talking about Candace Owens. Paul Duffy is saying Vivek or Lake. And again, Vivek's name is up over and over in the comments. I've not seen Katie Britt once. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not considering her. Maybe that's the whole thing, is that Trump wants to shock everybody and bring out somebody. And I could see it. I've watched him. I've talked to him, over the years about different things. And he's always got something that he's always got this element of surprise and intrigue that he understands that value. So who knows? But it's funny because you guys, I think, always have your pulse on the grassroots. Someone's throwing out, Chuck is putting out Elise Stefanik. Eileen's got Candace Owens again. Hart says, I don't trust Vivek, and I think he's just a very young jerk. Okay. But I think that there's, Dancing Queen says Nancy Mace. I got to tell you, Nancy was on the show on, I don't know, I think it's probably a couple months now. I have a hard time believing, and ironically, if you watch the Steve Bannon episode, he brought her up as well. Look, again, nothing shocks me with Trump. He's got a value, but I will tell you, I just don't see that one. And maybe in whatever 30 days from now, you guys say, see, we knew it and you didn't. I will tell you this, if Trump wraps this up tonight, I do see him, and whether it's tonight or a couple of weeks, that's irrelevant. I do think you're going to get a VP nominee real early. He's going to want to add something to the team. He's going to want that person to go out, help campaign, raise money. So I will say that it'll be interesting to see how that takes, because he gets the value that the VP brings to the ticket. So FYI, Marco Rubio would be good. Shocker pick RFK, Brenda. I don't disagree, Brenda, that would be a shocker pick. I think that RFK is a lot more of a liberal than people give him credit for. He's got a couple of big issues that I think a lot of people, the vaccines, but his stuff on the environment, on life, on gun, I don't know. I don't think that I think Trump understands the base. By the way, Linda, I see Lee Zeldin. He'll be on the show next week, for what it's worth. I think Lee Zeldin is attractive for a lot of reasons. But who knows? By the way, real quick, I want to thank everybody for joining tonight. Two big favors to ask of you all. If you can tonight, please make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel, hit the notification button, but please also do me a favor. If you open up your phone and go to wherever you get podcasts, either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or both, actually both would be great, and just subscribe. It helps us grow this movement so much. And that's it. And again, it's all free. You don't have to go to a streaming thing or anything like that. Just hit the subscribe button. It's all free. There's no money. We never asked for anything. That would be super helpful. If you are interested, we also do have a separate VIP group, SeanSpicerShow.com/VIP. And we do weekly chats a little bit more intimate than this. So if you want, SeanSpicerShow.com/VIP. But then obviously signing up on YouTube and Rumble, Apple, and Spotify, completely free. And it's super helpful to me. Thank you for everyone who did it the other day. Leona is saying Don Jr. I'm trying to think post JFK, I don't think you can. But maybe, I'm trying to think. Well, Don obviously is registered to vote now in Florida. He could easily move. His dad would be like, go back to New York and register. But that would be interesting. Yeah, Joseph is saying Nancy Mace is all over the place, too out there, very loud. Okay. The other thing is, Mike Mears, thanks, Sean Spicer for VP. I think my wife would kill me. I appreciate that, Mike. I'll just sit back and watch you work with the evangelical community and all the religious leaders that you help organize. I will tell you this. Thank you, Barbara, for subscribing. I appreciate that. Hold on. There was one more point that I was trying to get back. I'm sorry. The thing that, Grandma's saying Sarah Sanders. I've said that for a while. Obviously, I think the world of Sarah. And I think she does check a ton of boxes. So, just throwing that out there. I'm sorry. I'm going back because somebody made a really good point. Obviously, Tucker would be smart because he adds charisma and is good front of the camera. Absolutely. I think Tucker, I brought this up on the Sunday Night Live feed. Tucker would set the world on fire. It would be like, you'd be like, what Trump say? No, what did Tucker say? What did Trump say? They would keep us going. I don't think that there's any doubt of that. All the media would be going absolutely apoplectic. Hold on. There is one point, and I apologize because there was something that the feed is going so quick, but there's something that somebody said. Elise Stefanik keeps getting brought up. Berkeley saying, thank you. The Portner posse is in the house. Thank you. I appreciate that. Elise of New York is awesome. I've known Elise a long time. I think she would be great. She's shown in the last, I think the last couple of years, but definitely she keeps getting more and more into her own. Her takedown of those university presidents was epic. And frankly, those people lost their jobs. I said this the other night. Remember, the president of Harvard now only makes $900,000 teaching a course. How is she going to get by? How? I just can't see it. I mean, it's crazy what she's going to have to put up with for only for $900. I mean, I know Boston's expensive, but I'm sure she'll get by at $900K. This was insane. There was another point that was so good, and I'm trying to see. I get so into your comments. Heart of Nixie saying Josh from Missouri. That's a good one. Josh Hawley, I think, could be an interesting one. And I brought this up the other day. The other person that I think gets talked about is JD Vance of Ohio. And I think that Dr. Ben Carson is somebody who really gets Trump and has been out on the campaign trail and brings a whole, like, so many different elements that, I'm going to tell you that, that is going to be, that is going to be interesting. You think about the names that we've just thrown out, all of us here on this thing. It's Tucker could do his videos like Matt G does if he's VP. Oh yeah. I have a feeling, like I said, it's not going to be boring with Tucker. That's a no from me, says Eric on RFK. I think so too. I think that RFK is the presidential version of Joe Manchin. It's great that he's in the race. But I don't think, like, he's not a conservative. And frankly, I like Tulsi Gabbard too, but she's not yes, she sticks it in their eye and talks about what a bunch of hypocrites they are. But there's a big difference between that. I want someone who's going to be a pro-life, pro-gun, anti-government, lower taxes, start to really reduce the size of government. That's what I want. And I think sometimes we see these guys that buck the Democratic establishment, the Manchins, if you will, the Tulsi Gabbards, and they're good. Don't get me wrong. I think I love the idea that Manchin's doing what he's doing. And I've heard Tulsi talk. She's on fire. I appreciate her service to the country. But the question is, if they're the VP, they're next in line. Anything happens. And I want someone who's a committed conservative. I don't want someone who's, slowly working their way over from the left. I'm sorry. I don't even know. This looks like the Prince symbol. It's saying Vance is a rhino. I don't know about that. Someone Paul saying that Josh is a good pick. MTG. Oh, I know what I was going to say. This is it. Somebody brought up Kari Lake. I told you at the beginning of this call about this leaked call out of Arizona. And if you go to my Twitter feed, you'll hear it. The 10-minute version is better than the 5-minute version. And it's in my 30 years in politics, I've never heard anything like it. Nothing. I'll play it tomorrow on the show, I think, if I can. But I just cannot believe it. But here's the point that I want to make. This gets back to, what I was telling you about Byron Donalds and Ron DeSantis being from Florida and all that. Kari Lake made a decision to run for the Senate. And she will be the Republican nominee as far as I'm concerned. She's not going to take herself out of contention. Remember, Arizona has a Democratic governor. If Kari Lake, and I don't know the law in Arizona, but let's just say hypothetically that you could run for two offices at the same time. Some states prohibit it. Let's just say that they could, okay? If she could, and Trump and her were to win president, vice president, and then she won the Senate race, she'd have to resign because she can't be vice president and senator at the same time. I think we all can get that. And then the Democratic governor would appoint a Democrat. And I told you this on the Sunday night thing, guys. I was there. Trump needs a Republican Senate. You don't get your nominees through if you don't have a Republican Senate. And we would not have a Republican or a conservative Supreme Court. And despite that ridiculous ruling about the wire cutting yesterday, Roe v. Wade, all of these other things, I think the Chevron case that's coming down the pike is going to be massive, massive. Real quick, this Chevron case has allowed agencies to fine. So like I'm thinking SEC, FCC, all these, right? They've fined corporations and entities over the years under the guise that they had the authority. This case that's now before the Supreme Court says, no, you never had the authority. This will change everything. I mean, big time. This is going to send shockwaves through big tech, oil and gas, multiple industries. The only reason we have that, and frankly, these cases that right now, these people are trying to go after the Jack Smith cases, they're going to end up at the Supreme Court. The only reason we have a conservative Supreme Court is because of Donald Trump. The only reason. And the only reason those nominees got through is because of a Republican Senate. So I say all that just because I think if Kari Lake wants to be considered a VP, she can't be the Republican nominee in Arizona. It won't work out. What will happen when she wins? She would have to allow a Democratic governor to appoint a Democratic replacement, and that would screw up the Senate. So I'm just telling you that some of these people are great people. They would be excellent partners to Donald Trump, but there's also consequences by choosing them. And we need to understand them the same way that I was telling you about Article 2 and the 12th Amendment when it comes to two people from the same state. It's not going to happen. It doesn't mean I don't like either one of them or I love them tremendously. It doesn't matter. And I think that that's important. Joseph saying DeSantis for AG. Look, I got to be honest. I've seen Donald Trump forgive a lot. I watched him during the end of the campaign and people kind of realized, oh, I was wrong and I'm coming on board. He is a pretty forgiving guy. He really is. But I have a hard time after what he feels is a betrayal by Ron DeSantis. I just don't see it happening. I don't see him sucking it up, especially you think about how he talks with respect to Jeff Sessions and he wants an AG and he's not going to allow somebody who he doesn't believe is completely loyal. And so for that reason, I don't see it happening. Also for some of these other people, and now someone's saying like, Josh Hawley, Josh Hawley, remember, and this is a good discussion because Josh Hawley, Missouri, there's a Republican governor. So that adds a little bit of, yes, that can happen, right? If you're going to be Trump and you want someone to partner with you in some way, shape or form, whether that's in the cabinet or as a White House staffer, senior White House staffer, or as your VP, you're going to want to make sure that they don't alter the balance of power. What are they going to do to the Senate? Is that going to hurt your ability to get nominations through, et cetera? These are the things, though, that a team, as they're putting the nomination process together, is going to say. So right now we've got 11% in. Trump's got 53. Haley's got 46. What I will tell you, though, is, and again, this is where, remember, there's still 24 minutes in New Hampshire for a lot of for the polls in New Hampshire, other parts. It's a weird thing because, live free or die. They let these localities make a decision when they're going to close. I don't know that I think Florida might do this because of the panhandle, but it's time zone different, not allowing everyone to kind of do what they want. But for those of you who weren't at the beginning of the call, I'll tell you this right now. If Nikki Haley doesn't come within 10 points, there's no way that she can justify. Oh, I got to tell you my little smart thing. I thought of this morning. When these candidates are asked by the press, are you going to move on? Are you going to go on? Are you going to go on? Right. The next contest is technically Nevada. So see all you folks in the live stream that I work hard at getting that right. She is on the primary ballot there, which doesn't matter because there's no delegates awarded. Trump's on the caucus ballot, which makes sense. And that's where the delegates are awarded. But she keeps saying, I'm going to go on to South Carolina. Now, this is where I thought of this today. If this was anybody else, that's what they'd have to say. I'm going to play on to South Carolina and on to Howard Dean, Iowa, Super Tuesday. Oh, Dean scream. Look it up if you're young. But Nikki can say that legitimately. She lives there. So she can literally say with a clean conscience, I'm going to South Carolina. She lives there. So I thought of that this morning and I kept thinking to myself, I knew it. It came off her tongue so easily. And I realized she can do it because it's absolutely true. She literally, whether she's still in the race or not is actually the question that matters, but she will go to South Carolina. Hold on, I'm just reading. Okay, Mark is still making the case for Tulsi for VP. Mark, I get it. I'm just saying, I want someone who's a solid conservative. I appreciate where Tulsi has come over. I heard her speak at CPAC, I guess 2 years ago. Really compelling. And I'm glad she's on the team. But, I don't think you get to join the team and then get the front row seat. She has to put in a little time. I don't think she's fully on the conservative train. As I said, I want somebody who is a committed conservative. By the way, Priscilla, General Flynn, and President Trump's cabinet. Here's what I'll tell you, Priscilla. I think the president's made clear. I watched him say it that he wants Flynn back working for him. I think Flynn is back in the White House. He's not in a confirmable. The cabinet is all, with the exception of chief of staff, all has to be confirmed by the Senate, and there is no way that either Flynn is going to put himself through confirmation or that a bunch of these squishes in the Senate would let it happen. They would hold him up unequivocally. No question about it. Again, Brand is saying Sarah Huckabee Sanders is my number one VP pick, but she insists she doesn't want it. Well, that's how you play it right, don't you? I don't want it. I'm focused on being governor, and that's my only. You have to play the game. I mean, if you ever look like you want it, it's you got to be a little. You gotta play it a little and play the part. Yep, Linda's saying no Tulsi. Pam, Nikki, bye. Yeah, Harden, the Dean screaming. There you go. See, I knew somebody would know it. It was in Iowa after Dean got his butt kicked. He's like, "We're going on to," let's just, and then he goes, "Woo!" Anyway, I like Carson, but he lacks stage presence. I'll tell you, Search and Destroy. When you hear Ben Carson talk, it's not the same as a normal politician. He doesn't yell, but I'm telling you, I've watched him in a room and the room goes silent. He is a very compelling, and he's one of those people that everybody quiets down to listen. Anyway, I've always found I think that when he talks, it's like the old E.F. Hutton thing. People listen. How about Marjorie Taylor Greene for VP? Look, I think there's no question Trump likes her. If you ever, he gives her shout outs all the time. I'm wondering, and then Morgan is saying Flynn VP, I got you. Like he's flooding the zone on the comments there. Matt Whitaker for AG, by the way, Jewel, I was asked about that the other day and I was throwing out some names. Matt Whitaker would be fantastic. You saw him standing there, on stage with Trump in Iowa, where he's from. He was the U.S. attorney out there too. He's a smart guy, well respected. I can see that happening. Trump has now opened up the lead, by the way, 54-44. And here's where we go, right? The rural areas where Trump's going to do much, much better are starting to slowly, I think, come in. When you look at the map of what's in, it's just Manchester for the most part right now, but you're starting to see those slow numbers. Trump, look, he's already over. He's at exactly 10% lead. This is the danger zone for Nikki Haley. If he keeps growing, which I think he's gonna, then it's game over for her. I think the one thing I will say tonight is her only opportunity. She's going to have everyone in the world listening to what she says in her concession speech. And she has a chance to either use this to save some political capital, or she's going to say, I'm going to continue on, or I'll address you in 3 days. And then she's going to get like 5 bloggers to show up. So if she does lose by more than 10-ish points, even the networks this morning were saying that she's going to get blown out. By the way, just a quick reminder, again, I put it in the chat. But if you are kind enough tonight, thank you for tuning in. I love the back and forth in the comments. But please go to YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification button, and then go to Rumble, Spotify, and Apple. There's no cost. It's free. As we grow the show and this effort and this movement, that's the greatest thing that we can do. Thank you so much for everyone who did it the other night. I really, really appreciate it. And so That's all I ask of you. And if you're really interested, you can go to SeanSpicerShow.com/VIP, and that's our weekly chats and some of the stuff that I pulse you guys a little bit on a more intimate basis that's not with several hundred people in a YouTube chat. But please, please subscribe and share. I love doing this, and I'm only able to do it because of you guys. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is so cool. There's no lawyers. Yeah, no lawyers, no corporate. This is me, you, and some of our closest friends. But I made a choice to go do this. And I was hoping that if we had a compelling message and a great format and people like you, that this could be successful. And it is exceeded. Thank you, Search and Destroy. I appreciate that. Joseph Roy at donations. Yeah, you can go to My Locals. And again, just signing up and doing that. I'm not asking for it. If you want to, if you like what you see, I'd appreciate it. I mean, the kids got to eat. I mean, I got 2 kids, but I'm not. If you can, and I know under the Biden economy, it's tough, folks, then go to My Locals channel, SeanSpicerShow.com/VIP. And you can become a VIP member of the show. But that's it. And I don't even think we do this. There's no other way. So this is it. I love doing it. Joseph, thanks for asking me. I appreciate your support. I'm wondering, are you related to me? Did my wife put you up to that? If Trump is too old at 77 years old, then the same for senators in Congress. I don't know where that's coming from. Look, the funny thing is when it comes to Morgan saying, I bet Kash Patel will be in the administration. I will take that bet, Morgan. I won't take that bet. I will agree with you on that bet. Double down on it because Kash, the president, obviously thinks a lot of Kash, relies on him. And I think Kash Patel has a lot to offer. I was there early on when he was working for Devin Nunes and all the Russia stuff was coming out. Kash was at the NSC at the time. Or was he with Devin? But anyway, he's been super supportive of the agenda. And so I will just tell you that there's no question. By the way, Marianne just signed up. Thank you. I appreciate that. Heart of Nixie. I've been watching your show grow very quickly. Wonderful. Thank you. And that was kind of the big, hey, when we jumped off the cliff saying we're going to go in a whole new direction. The idea was if we do this right, if we do a compelling and informative format, the show, these kind of things, that I think people want this going into an election year. I mean, and I think that's the fun thing. I love it. There's some people that are sport fanatics and, can tell you every, RBI in baseball and how many completions somebody has in football, whatever. I love politics. I've been doing it for a long time and I know the system and I love sharing it and talking about it, probably obsessively, which is why I'm sitting here in my basement on a Tuesday night. So you are growing, Sean. So happy for you. Thanks, Linda. I appreciate it. Yeah. By the way, Morgan, that's the point. I can say what I want. I don't know. I don't think I probably can say anything, but let's keep it PG in case you got kids in the room, but you get what I'm getting at here. Vicky loves Matt Whitaker. Good. Me too. Subscribe. Thank you, Deborah. Kash Patel, another good choice. Yep. Watching the live results on app while I'm here. Why is DeSantis, Christie Pence still getting vote? Chuck, great question. I want to I don't know when everyone joined, but let me just show you again. This is the Republican sample ballot. 24 names are on it. So you can drop out and you're still like, Asa Hutchinson. Actually, yeah, he did drop out. Mike Pence, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott, they're all on here. But then there's people like John Anthony Castro of Mansfield, Texas, Peter Jeddick of Rocky River, Ohio. By the way, Perry Johnson's on here. Mary Maxwell of Concord, New Hampshire. Glenn Peters of Essex Junction, Vermont. They're all on here. That's the thing that, people have got to remember is that the names that we hear of Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, et cetera, but they're all like people can get on a Republican ballot depending on each state has its own ballot qualifications. That's another thing I'll tell you, by the way, totally off subject, but actually let me do this first. This is for those of you who missed it at the front. This is the Democratic ballot. 21 people on it, not Joe Biden. They're writing him in down at the bottom and we'll see how he does tonight. It's a lot harder. You got to fill in the little bubble. You got to write his name. And then Dean Phillips is right there in the middle, but you also can vote for a guy named Paperboy Love Prince, Vermin Supreme, and right there, yeah, President R. Bodie of Atlanta, Georgia. So that's a long answer to your question. But by the way, switching to the general for 1 second, there's a lot of these polls that put RFK on or whatever. Who knows? We've got several months to go, but RFK is on one ballot right now. He is on the Utah ballot. That's it. Now, that may change. He may get on a few more, but I just want you to understand that, because what the media doesn't do is they'll say, well, in a poll, well, great. That's like saying, I'm going to offer you, it's like when you go to a restaurant and they tell you all the specials and then you order it and they come back and say, we don't have that anymore. We ran out. Well, then you can't order it, and you can't vote for somebody who's not on a ballot. And right now, RFK is on one ballot. And I just want people to understand that's happening. So, Chuck, I know you were asking a very simple question. That's an that's a great question. And I just want to make sure in a very long-winded way. I explained it because I think that Stephen K. Bannon for VP. Just kidding. Love him on War Room. That's exactly. I asked Steve the other day. He was on the show. You can go search out the episode. And I said to him, "There's some rumors that you might be, chief of staff." And he said, "Are you kidding me? I'll never go back. I'm much more able to help the president's agenda through War Room." He also said, how many lawsuits I got involved in and how many people sued me. And it's true. It's not easy. Morgan's asking thoughts about Tucker for press secretary. That would be its own show. I wonder if Tucker would take it. I don't know. See, the thing that just to explain this to you, so a couple things. When you take those jobs, that you have to divest all your holdings. And luckily, I didn't really have a lot of holdings, so that wasn't a problem for me. They walk into your office, and this is in all seriousness, and you have a sheet where you fill out all the stock you own or whatever, and they'll say, okay, you need to divest that, you need to sell that. Now, luckily, I had a bunch of like Coca-Cola stock. I did this thing called a DRIP. Some of you may have heard of a direct investment program where I'd sent like $50 a pay period since I was, 30. So I built up a few $1,000s, and if it's over $10,000, you have to sell it. So I had like a handful of stocks that I had to sell because they were in these DRIP accounts. But if you're a rich guy or you've done really well, and I think, Tucker's, I think by his own account, done very well. He's been successful in some of his ventures. I don't know where his money is, but do you really want to get rid of all that stuff? Now you can put it in a money market account or something that's what they call it, like a qualified account. But there's the people that will tell you, hey, you can do this. So it's interesting. Do you want to give up all that? Do you want the scrutiny that goes along with that? I know, he moved out of DC. He wanted to get away from it all. Going back to it would be big for him and his family. So I don't know, but he would make this thing entertaining, and he can sell. So that's something to keep in mind. So so Trump's, I'm watching 11% in. It's closed a little, but again, remember, none of this matters. You got 11% in, so I'm not too concerned. Thanks, Priscilla. I appreciate the interaction as well. Thanks for being here. Yep. New England Patriot or any Patriots asking the same thing. Tucker for press secretary. I also wonder, I haven't asked him this, but I wonder if that's what he'd want. It's interesting. You get all these rumors about him being vice president and being like, oh, we weren't thinking about just vice president. What about press secretary? It's a big shift in positions, right? So, what is being done about securing the vote in this country? No one seems to willing to talk about it. I'll tell you this. You talk about an interesting day to ask that, Tom. I tweeted out this morning, America First Legal, which is being run by Stephen Miller, sued, and I don't know if it was just a Freedom of Information Act or what, but they sued. It's called the Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. You might recall this dude, Krebs, put out a statement saying it was the most secure election after the thing, and then Donald Trump fired him. It's part of Homeland Security, right? Well, the reason I bring this up is that Stephen Miller's group, America First Legal, and I tweeted this out this morning, so if you want to see what I'm talking about, go look at it. The form is out. These guys admitted after all these documents came out, they knew that mail-in voting was a problem. They knew it. And they further, through the documents that America First Legal got out there, that people who were going to complain about it, they wanted to make sure that they were labeled disinformation spreaders and purveyors of disinformation. That's the government. So I say that because I don't know Tom. I'm saying, like, I wish I had this is insane. The idea that it's now you can vote for like 3 months and we just mail them to people and there's no accountability. It was the commission that Jimmy Carter headed that talked about the potential for fraud of sending mail-in ballots. And I don't know why this is even a discussion. Like, who doesn't think that that's possible? You send a ballot to someone and then you have no chain of custody and you worry about whether or not someone can just pull it out of their mailbox and send it. I mean, it doesn't on its face make sense. You wouldn't allow anything else like that to operate in that way. They make you go in for a passport. I mean, just this is it's literally a silly discussion. It's kind of like what's going on the border. Like the idea that they're cutting wires and letting illegal immigrants to just walk in and saying, "What do you mean? Why do you think we're for a secure, not for a secure border?" The idea that it's so illogical that I can't believe that we even have to have these discussions. So, Tom, I think there's some efforts being made in a lot of states to require voter ID or to redo this stuff. But mark my word, the Democrats know what they're doing. They know this. I don't. The same thing with immigration. If we don't realize the idea that they don't know how to fix this and stop this is crazy, right? They are bringing new people in. They're going to let them. Then they're going to claim that they're here under DACA, and then in 5 years from now, they're going to talk about, well, it's a shame they need a right to vote because they've been here through quote no fault of their own. If we don't, this is we are watching this happen. Grandma says. The Asa Hutchinson is rooting for Nikki Haley. Oh God, yeah. I don't even think that's a question. Sean is asking. Sean spelled the wrong way, by the way. Sean Shawn. I can't blame you. Your parents probably just made a mistake. They didn't name you Sean. But Sean is asking about McCarthy. That's an interesting one, right? He said on the way out, "I would be glad to serve it," and I was like, I don't know. We'll see. I also kind of kept thinking to myself, so you have to quit Congress, but you want to go back into government. You want to put the Republican majority in peril. But I just honestly, I was kind of a little intrigued by him saying immediately he could go back in. I don't know why he would say that. Let me just. I'm going through a couple of this. Okay. And we're 5 minutes from the rest of the state actually now closing and then everything. Rick Grenell, will he be back in a Trump administration? Asked Peggy. If I had to guess, Rick Grenell, Secretary of State. Now, this goes back to what I said earlier in the call. All of these positions rely on Republicans getting a majority in the Senate. If they don't, I don't think Chuck Schumer is going to be doing any favors for the Republicans. He's not going to do it. Well, and so Trump's not going to. I mean, the key to this to a Trump administration is to get his people in and be able to get his policy through the House. So I'm just telling you, everyone. That's why the Kari Lake thing that I was going off on for a second, because he needs Kari Lake to win that Arizona Senate seat, and if she were to drop out or something or be his VP, then a Democratic governor is not going to appoint a Republican. So Rick Grenell to head up the FBI would be great. That would be interesting. I do think he ends up as Secretary of State if there's a Republican majority that can get him through. And I think regardless, he still might get appointed. Ben, of course, Ben V is saying Ben Carson. Mark Robinson for VP. Kevin Smith is saying Mark Robinson is the Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina running for governor. So again, I don't know. Does he want to give that up? Who knows? Looking. Good question at Chris. Yeah. So no to McCarthy. I it's not that even no. I just kind of wonder. And then Morgan's asking, is Michelle Obama on the Democratic ballot? I've addressed this before. I do not see any world in which Michelle Obama ends up on a ballot. None. She doesn't want it. They don't want her. And also just, I said this, I think the other night on the call, there is this tension between Biden folks and Obama folks. And the Biden folks do not want to feel like they're getting bailed out or rescued or helped by the Obama folks. And that's how they look at it. And I think the Obama folks want to think that they're helping them. Biden is committed to becoming the most progressive president ever. And that means if he ever were to step down, he is going to do everything in his power to anoint Kamala Harris the next vice president. He wants to say, Joe Biden, I was the one that put female of color into the White House. Now, mark my word, I don't think it's going to happen. That's what the thinking is, though. That's what's happening. Devin Nunes knows all. He's a smart guy. He's been on the show, by the way, and obviously running the Truth Social effort for President Trump. So clearly got a good relationship with Trump. He's saying Michael Obama. We all know. Okay. I I just thought you were misspelling stuff. Okay. Why hasn't the RNC gotten rid of Rana? In today's show, I talked to Tyler Bauer, who is the national committee man. Each state has 3 members: a committee man, committee woman, a chair. He is the committee man from Arizona, and he was talking about the fact that there's an upcoming RNC meeting in Vegas, and that what's happening now in states all throughout the country is they are electing, and they will be brought in at the convention, new slates of committee men and committee women. And his view was these new committee men and new committee women are going to take office at the convention in Milwaukee, and then they have a meeting. And his point to me was there'll be a meeting, and that's likely to be a big deal. But part of the reason, Christy, that I'm bringing this up is that there has to be you have to, like anything, you have to actually meet to have a mechanism. I don't think that there's anything on the docket for this upcoming meeting, but it'll be interesting to see if these new people get elected to the RNC. What do they think? And by then you'll have a nominee in Trump, and he'll be going to the convention. So we'll see. All right. We're getting close to an hour. I thought we'd be further ahead in the vote count. It's a little slower than I thought. We might have to figure this out, but I'll obviously break this all down on the show tomorrow. So for all of you good people who have subscribed, YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, hit the notification button. Especially, listen, I'm just going to tell you this, on the Apple and the Spotify, on the audio podcast, I don't really care if you ever listen, but being subscribed is super helpful. That's why I'm saying it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't take up space on your phone. But it means a lot to the podcast gods. So it really helps show momentum with the show. And then obviously on YouTube and Rumble, if you can hit that subscribe and notification, we're every night. We're on the first network. If you have DirecTV, channel 347 at 7:00 every night, right before Bill O'Reilly. But then the YouTube numbers are huge for us. So thank you for everyone who's doing this. I'm sorry. I actually thought, thanks, Apresh. I appreciate this. Christy, Joseph, Michael Payne, obviously, we'll see. Ben, all of you guys, I appreciate you jumping on. I'll try to do this again soon. I thought tonight we would have a lot more of the results in, but it's definitely looks like it's going in the right direction, which is good. Only 12% is in. So in the last little while that we've been talking, 1%. Trump's pretty much where he was. So anyway, and as of right, hold on, I'm bouncing around a little. But it's official that all of the polls have now closed in New Hampshire. They had the 7:00 Eastern polls and the 8:00 polls. I mean, New Hampshire's not that big. I don't know why we're doing this, but live free or die, folks. So, but it is now locked in. We'll see where it goes. But remember, when you're watching this tonight, the Manchester, Nashua, Concord are probably going to come in early. That's, as it gets further out, is where you get further away from Boston. You think New Hampshire looks, well, it's not a triangle, but you know what I'm saying. And all down here near Boston is where you got Manchester, Concord, and Nashua. A lot of that, right? So you're going to get a little bit more of your suburban vote. The further up you get, the more live free or die you get. So know that that's going to happen. By the way, I'm just flipping around. Fox and CNN are now both calling Joe Biden the winner. It's interesting because if you can't call it for Trump, and that's just reading the ballot, you really think these guys read the mail-ins? Isn't that a little odd? The 1 minute after the polls close. And remember, I showed you this ballot. Let me just, again, there are no votes they have to read them. They have to literally go down and look at, did they check that box and did they write that name? Are you kidding me? Do you really think that they have all looked at those ballots to know that there's more people who did that for him than Dean Phillips, who actually campaigned? Now, I think Biden's campaign probably put enough of an effort, but this is the media right now, and Fox and CNN both calling it. But 1 second after that poll closed, they called it. Not one of these guys, by the way, this is what's wrong with our media. They didn't see this, that none of them can tell how many ballots. They don't know how many Dean Phillips. They just are that cocky. I mean, this is what we get. So the next time people, now will Biden ultimately win? Probably, because they put a ton of money in and he's the incumbent president and all of the machine was out there trying to help him, despite the fact that he kicked them in the face by taking away the first in the nation primary, despite the fact that it's their state law. Okay. But this is your CNNs and even Fox. It's disappointing to see it. So anyway, I know, Peggy, what the heck? I agree with you. Thank you guys for joining. I will continue to do this. That's why hitting the notification button is so important. So we tell you. And if you have any more comments, keep leaving them. I love reading them. But it's interesting. Bill's saying Ben Carson does not want VP. Okay, maybe Bill knows something that I know. Anyway, thank you guys for jumping on here. I love this interaction. And then do me a favor, tell your friends